It's been a little while, but I'm back. And I thought, what better way to return than to talk about the next wave of upcoming IPOs? But not just any IPOs. I'm looking at huge, mainstream companies that have been making moves that could lead to them finally pulling the trigger on going public sooner rather than later. Hey everyone, welcome to Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And for anyone new here, I'm Kevin. And if you're not new here, well then, I want to remind you that I'm Kevin because I know it's been a while since my last video, and I'm so glad that you guys have come back. Now let me say quickly for now that this break wasn't planned, so I apologize for not giving you guys a heads up, but I didn't expect to not make a video for so long, and I'll tell you more about what happened at the end of the video if you're interested. But first, since I know that many of you that have been with me in the channel love hearing about IPOs, I figured that I would cap my apology with a video on some of the top upcoming IPOs that I know many of us are looking forward to. And to get us started, let me give you an update on a company that we've talked about before, and that's Instacart. Many of you are familiar with them as the company that operates a grocery delivery and pickup service through the use of its website and its mobile app. And as we know, they were huge during the beginning of the pandemic when more people were needing groceries as we were eating at home, as restaurants were closed, but also as people were nervous going into the stores. And that led to huge growth in 2020, with Instacart being reported to have generated approximately $1.5 billion in net revenue in 2020 and turning profitable on an adjusted basis for the last 3 quarters of 2020. So I last talked about them a few months ago, and at the time I expected they were looking to go public fairly soon for a few reasons. One was, of course, they had just had this major year of growth that they could capitalize on, sort of like what DoorDash did with their IPO, so the timing made sense. My thinking was that by waiting, they would be at risk for having to show revenue decelerating, which I would expect to happen as more of the economy was opening up in the spring. And then also at that time, we had heard that they had selected Goldman Sachs to head up their IPO. But after what happened with DoorDash and Airbnb, there were also reports they were considering a direct listing, like how Roblox switched their plans up, and in that case, Instacart would just use Goldman as an advisor. And then to go with that, early this year they had a private fundraising round raising $265 million, upping their valuation to $39 billion, which, by the way, was more than double from around in October of last year when they were valued at $17.7 billion. Now, having watched companies like Roblox and Coinbase holding private fundraising rounds right before registering for a direct listing, I felt like they were getting close. Now obviously that hasn't happened yet, and I'll just say that for anyone new to the channel, if you're not sure what a direct listing is or how it's different from a traditional IPO, I'll link a video I made earlier this year that tells you more about them in the description. Now also back in March, we talked about how Instacart had just added Frank Slootman to their board of directors, who is well known in investing circles for having taken 3 big companies public, including last year's darling Snowflake. Which again was another sign to me that an Instacart IPO or direct listing could be imminent. But again, nothing came as far as any concrete plans or filings. Well now, just recently, Instacart seems to be making more moves to go public, and I say that because they're making some changes at the top, and hiring both a new CEO and a new president. Now at first glance, big changes at the top may not seem like a good time for the company to go public, so that could mean that an IPO is not imminent. But when you consider that both of the women appointed to these roles worked at Facebook at the time that company went public, then we start to see how this could be the next step in transitioning to a public company. And it's not like the people they're replacing went anywhere. In fact, one of them was the founder. They've just moved into different roles with different focuses, and maybe some of those focuses are looking to a public listing. Now as far as when an IPO or direct listing will happen, I don't have anything concrete. Now I've heard some recent rumors of a listing in the 4th quarter of 2021, but personally I could see this slipping into 2022 as the 2 new executives get settled into their roles. Having said that, I would be really surprised if an Instacart IPO didn't happen at least by sometime next year at the latest. And if that doesn't happen, in my mind that would be concerning as to how their business is going as the pandemic's effect on the economy weakens. I mean, nobody wants to go into an IPO with declining financials, which is what I alluded to a couple of minutes ago. Not saying that's happening or gonna happen, but the timing could be affected by what's happening in the economy. Okay, so that's the latest I have for you on an Instacart IPO. Up next, we have a couple of companies that there's a lot of interest in. And I know that from many of you in your comments in previous videos. So let's talk about a huge one. In fact, the one with the biggest valuation we'll talk about today, and that's Stripe. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't leave Stripe as the most valuable company out there to the end, well, it's because it's probably the one I'm least sure of to when they could hold an IPO. But I have to say that there's one reason why I think it could come sooner than later, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But first, let's talk a little bit about Stripe and why a Stripe IPO would be huge. First of all, Stripe is a financial technology or fintech company, and as you know, those types of companies are all the rage in the market. I keep thinking about when I first talked about Upstart here and before their IPO and what happened with that company's stock. Wow. And then, of course, there are some of the more familiar names of those types of companies. Ones like PayPal and Square that move a lot of money around, but they're not banks, and therefore they don't have the same amount of costly regulations the traditional banks have to deal with. So as far as Stripe, what do? Well, while they're expanding with other products and services, they're primarily known for processing hundreds of billions of dollars in e-commerce transactions every year, where they charge 2.9% of the total transaction value and 30 cents for each payment transaction. And that, in today's increasingly digital world, adds up. According to reporting from the Wall Street Journal, Stripe generated $7.4 billion in revenue in 2020, and that was up 70% from the previous year. So this was another company that benefited from consumer behavior changes brought on by the pandemic, as more people were buying more things online while they were stuck in their homes. And let me tell you, they count some big name companies as customers. Instacart, who we just talked about, they're one. Google is another. Wayfair, Peloton, Shopify, Amazon, all customers, and as you can imagine, all customers with a lot of transactions. Now, as you know, there are other payment processing companies out there. So they do have some competition, but it may not be as direct as it might appear. For instance, PayPal, with its early relationship with eBay, focuses on online payments that really focuses more on individuals setting up and using accounts to transfer money electronically, whereas Square is focused more on in-store merchant payments. Stripe is a little different as they focus on building developer-friendly code to add to a customer's company's website to process the payments. I probably simplified this a little, but I think it gives a little better idea on how they're somewhat different from each other. Anyway, so that's some of the background on Stripe. As far as an investment, well, private investors love them. In fact, according to Crunchbase, they are the U.S.'s most highly valued venture-backed private company at a valuation of $95 billion. And Stripe counts Elon Musk and Peter Thiel as early investors. A couple of guys that were very involved in PayPal at the beginning, so I'm sure that fact alone gives further validation to the company if those guys wanted to be involved with Stripe. Now, as I said, I don't know if a Stripe IPO is imminent because accessing capital has not been a problem for them, so it's not like they need to have an IPO. But there are a couple of things that might point to an IPO coming up in the near future. One is that the company has been around since 2010, so not old, but not new. And then when you got that latest valuation of $95 billion, that came at a Series H round. That's a lot of rounds, so they're pretty mature as far as a private company goes. And then the second reason I could see a Stripe IPO sooner than later is that the company, much like we talked about with Instacart, they've been making some moves in their team, hiring the CFO from publicly traded GM to be their CFO last October, and they've also added a couple of new board members this year. Again, this doesn't mean that they're going to be making a move soon, but there just comes a time when an IPO makes sense because it's one of the best ways for early investors to realize their gains, and I think 11 years in, Stripe is at that point. So I think we need to keep an eye on Stripe. Now, if any of you have heard anything else on Stripe plans to go public, definitely share with us in the comments. Okay, just real quick, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe if you haven't already done that, and also please hit that like button. Not because I need to feel liked for my ego, although it's nice. It just helps me to know that you like videos like this so I know to keep making them. Plus it also helps YouTube know to send it to more people, and as I said before, the more we can grow the channel, the more I'll do here. And I'll talk a little bit more about this at the end of the video. Alright, so the last company I want to talk about today is Rivian. Now this is a company I've personally had my eyes on for some years now, and there seems to be more and more buzz that a Rivian IPO could be just around the corner. So let's talk a little bit more about what the company does, and then why we think an IPO could be happening sooner than later. Now if you're into cars in general or investing in EVs, you probably already know that Rivian is a company that is looking to bring both an electric truck called the R1T and an electric SUV called the R1S to market soon. Now the company's actually been around since 2009, but really it was only after the first 4 years or so that they put their focus on electric trucks and SUVs. And they claim that their vehicles are built to actually take on rugged terrain, so they're not just trying to build an EV that looks like a truck, but one that actually acts like one as well. Now when I first saw pictures of the R1T and R1S a few years ago, I knew they had something interesting. First of all, EVs that were being made were mostly traditional cars, and yet the market, particularly in the US, was going full steam in on trucks and SUVs. So right off the bat, I was interested in their strategy. Now when I first saw those pictures, I didn't love all the design elements, but I still liked a lot of it. And this was well before Tesla released images of the Cybertruck, which, I'm not going to lie, when I saw that truck, I did not like it at all. And I still don't. Even though I can appreciate if someone wants something radically different, they would now have an option. So even though I was worried for Rivian when I heard Tesla was coming out with their truck, but then after seeing it, I figured people like myself that like traditional styling weren't going to be too interested in the Cybertruck, which meant that they were probably not going to have to compete directly with Tesla, as I just really see them as being too different and appealing to different customers. Anyway, so in their development, I obviously wasn't the only one intrigued with Rivian. Amazon became a big investor in the company, and not just from an investment perspective, as they also ordered 100,000 vans to be delivered to them by 2030. Another big name was Ford getting involved soon after Amazon, and I was wondering at one point if Ford might try to just outright acquire them, particularly after it was reported that Rivian was going to build an SUV for them under the Lincoln name. However, those plans were later scrapped, and now Ford is looking to now build that SUV on its own, as they also have plans to build other electric versions of other vehicles, including its flagship F-150 truck. So it's an interesting relationship. Now at this point, with production occurring in Illinois, Rivian is on track to come to the US market with its R1T truck in September and its R1S SUV later in the fall. Now as far as the truck, they've had a couple of delays, as it was announced originally for June and then pushed back to July, and now it's looking like September, so we'll see if that actually happens. The latest delay was reported to be pandemic related, with that involving issues slowing down their facility construction, equipment installation, and vehicle component supply, semiconductors in particular. And now we'll have to see if that's all been resolved and if that September target holds. The good thing for Rivian is if they do start deliveries in September, then they would beat Tesla to market, as the Cybertruck, which was originally slated for 2021 release, that's been delayed until sometime in 2022. As far as some longer range plans, the company is looking to finalize a second plant, and they seem to be focused on eventually delivering smaller models of its R1T and R1S for the Chinese and European markets. Now as far as looking towards an IPO, it was reported by Bloomberg that the company has brought on advisors including Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan to help prepare for a Rivian IPO. As far as valuations go, the company was worth over $27 billion as of a January fundraising round. But as to what the company could be valued at for its IPO, if the rumors are true, it looks like the company could be targeting a $70 billion valuation. Some rumors claim that the IPO could happen as early as next month to coincide with those first deliveries. But that might be a little optimistic as far as the timeline, but we shall see. Anyways, so there's a list of big, huge, mainstream upcoming IPOs. Instacart, Stripe, and Rivian. Let us know in the comments which one you're most interested in. As for me, valuations aside, I think Stripe is probably the no-brainer top choice, but I'm really most intrigued with Rivian, as you might have been able to tell as I was talking. Alright, so if you've hung in there this long, I wanted to let you know why it's been a couple of months since you last heard from me and what that means going forward. Well, I guess the main thing is that I had a lot going on, and it was really getting hard to stay consistent with the videos when I had other work-related things I had to do, and honestly was starting to feel a little run down. For over a year, I've been putting out 2 to 3 videos a week, very consistently, but I was able to do a lot of that while I was able to be at home more with everything closed down. So of course, things are opening up, and that was one part of it. The second thing was that I was having some computer issues which took a lot of my time fixing, which I did, but it spent a lot more time than I figured it would take, but what are you going to do? Now the third reason was actually a good reason, as I had planned a little getaway, and I did get to do that. And while on that vacation, I got engaged, which was just awesome. I can't tell you how happy I am to take the next step with her. She's just the perfect person for me. Anyway, so that's some of the things that came up. But the crazy thing is that once I stepped away from the channel, and I did, like completely, I didn't check comments or even log in, because I knew if I did, I would spend hours replying to comments, because you guys know I try my best to always do that, because I just really enjoy the interaction, and I feel like I personally know a lot of you. But at the time, I figured I'd skip a week or so and then be back. And so I didn't even put up a post because I figured no one with me would even have noticed that I was even gone. But again, the crazy thing is, after just a couple of weeks away from YouTube, I felt like I wasn't sure how to get back into it. Like, even though I did over 120, 30 videos last year, I felt like so rusty and I wasn't sure how to get back into it. I mean, I never thought I wouldn't get to doing a comprehensive Robinhood IPO video, but I didn't. I was just so burned out. And I even started to think, is this something I could even keep doing? Well, the thing is, I came to an answer for myself, and I'm back here today because I really enjoy this channel and everyone in the community. In fact, I'm super proud of it. And I say that for two reasons. One is that I've been humbled by having all of you out there that have watched my videos, subscribed to the channel, and interacted with me in the comments. I can't tell you how much I've learned from you guys, and I hope that it's been a two-way street. And I think it's been because I've gotten so much positive feedback, which has really validated what I wanted to do here. The second reason I'm so proud of this channel is because probably, or even definitely, at the detriment of getting more views and subscribers, I've stayed pretty true to who I am. I've not hyped anything. I don't tell you what you should do or not do. I just share the information I have with you, throw in some of my own thoughts, and hope you find value in it. And so no, I'm not giving up on this channel. Now, going forward, I don't think I'll go 2 months again before you hear from me, but I'm not going to put pressure on myself to put out a set number of videos per week. It might vary based on whatever else I have going on in life, and I'm sure you guys can relate to that. And as a heads up, I'm probably going to mix it up a little with some different types of videos, which all the YouTube gurus say you shouldn't do. They say stick with your niche or niche. But again, at the end of the day, I want this channel to be about what me and you want to talk about, not driven by the YouTube algorithm. Although I will say I still would appreciate new subscribers and likes, and really appreciate you guys sharing the video links to your social media sites to help me grow. But back to my main point. Honestly, I get bored doing the same things over and over. And while I always have invested in videos because I do enjoy that, and I know a lot of you are here because of those types of videos, I'm going to try some different things, and hopefully some of those things you'll enjoy and learn from too. And I think it'll help me stay a little fresher and not feel so much pressure to cover every IPO that comes out, when I know a lot of them are companies that neither you or I are much interested in. So anyway, just want to thank all of you again. You guys are awesome. Hope you're having a great summer, and look forward to talking to you soon. Definitely sooner than later. Take care.